What's going on, everybody? It's ETA Prime back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the best 8-inch tablets that you can buy right now at the time of making this video. And yeah, this is the brand new iPad mini for 2024. This is also known as the iPad mini 7, and when it comes to the new upgrades here, I mean, we've definitely got a lot over its predecessor, the iPad mini 6, but we are kind of keeping some of the same things. Now, where it matters, in my opinion, they've definitely given us a nice little boost there when it comes to RAM and that CPU. And I've always been a big fan of the iPad mini due to its portability and performance when it comes down to it. And the biggest reason I picked up this new version is because the iPad mini is actually my youngest son's favorite tablet. Unfortunately, about a week before they even announced the new one, I got up in the middle of the night, stepped down off the bed, and crushed his iPad mini 6. I felt bad about it and was going to replace the screen. I still am on the iPad mini 6, but I figured I'd go ahead and pick this up because the rumors were stating that a new iPad mini was on the way. And yeah, I do think that this is a nice little upgrade if you're into the mini series. When it comes to Android tablets in this form factor, there are a few that actually perform really well, like the Lenovo Legion Y700. There are a couple different variants out there. I think it's got an 8.8-inch display. And don't get me wrong, when it comes to customization, Android is definitely going to be where it's at. But if you're looking for something that you can just boot up and know that you're going to be getting constant updates and security updates, then this might be a good choice. The upgrades for the new iPad mini include the Apple A17 Pro. It's actually a bin chip, so when it comes to the Apple GPU, in the iPhone 15 Pro Max, we've got a 6-core GPU. This actually is a 5-core GPU, but we've still got that hexa-core design with 2 performance cores running up to 3.78 gigahertz and 4 efficiency cores running at an unknown clock right now. I actually couldn't pull them from the unit. 8 gigabytes of RAM, up from 4 in the iPad mini 6. And you can definitely opt for more storage here. They've got a 128, 256, and a 512. Now, one of the big downsides is, it's non-upgradable storage. We don't have a micro SD card slot, so you're kind of stuck with what you have here. In this video, I wanted to take a look at gaming and emulation performance on this new iPad mini. But first things first, I wanted to compare some benchmarks between this one and the older iPad mini 6. And first up, we've got Geekbench 6. When it comes to CPU performance, single core coming in with a 2986 on the new iPad mini 7. On the iPad mini 6, 2121. I also ran the Geekbench 6 GPU benchmark. This tests GPU performance using the Metal backend. On the mini 7, 26,009. Over on the mini 6, 19,503. So along with better single core performance and multi-core in the CPU, we do have a more powerful GPU. And just to give you an idea, I also ran 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme. On the Mini 7, we scored a 3,629. On that Mini 6, 2,752. And the final one I ran here was Antutu, and I will admit that on iOS, this benchmark is getting a bit dated. But again, of course, the iPad Mini 7 did come ahead by quite a bit here. One thing I always love to test with these mobile devices is video over USB Type-C. And yeah, the new iPad Mini 7 can transfer video over USB Type-C. But we don't have that nice big screen feature like we do on the iPads with the M1 up to the M4 chip. With those newer, more expensive iPads, we can actually get a full screen over on the external monitor and still use the tablet itself, kind of a desktop mode. I mean, it's very limited when you compare it to something like Samsung DeX. As you can see, this one does not have it. We're still going to get those black bars on the side. But there are a few apps like Steam Link that will give us a full screen experience on the external monitor. So, it really comes down to the developer. Now, I want to get into some gaming, and I've actually got a bunch of stuff to test here. I'm using an Xbox controller connected over Bluetooth, but there are a ton of different controllers that are going to work. As you saw at the very beginning, I was using a telescopic controller. I'll leave some links in the description to a few controllers that I personally recommend. But here we have Goat Simulator 3 with maxed out graphics, and most of these newer games do have graphic settings built in here on iOS, so we can turn them down or bring them on up. When it comes to Call of Duty Mobile, we're at high, max frame rate, and this is one of those games that just works really well on these iPad minis. Even the iPad mini 5, you're not going to have an issue playing this with these settings here. Another one I wanted to test here was PUBG. We're at high, 60 FPS, and it really does look good on this display. It's not the highest resolution display or highest refresh rate. One upgrade I wish they did here was add 120 Hz instead of just a 60 Hz display. But at 60, I mean, it's going to be able to run basically anything you can throw at this thing, full speed, maxed out. Here's Hades, and unfortunately this is not available on Android, and it's only available through the Netflix games that they have. So you will need a Netflix account in order to play this on iOS, but it does work out really well. I was hoping they would have added Hades 2, but I'm not sure if they're ever going to do it. Either way, if you want to play Hades on this thing, it's a really nice experience. Capcom's been going pretty hard when it comes to porting over some of their console and PC ports to iOS. I mean, it's pretty amazing seeing what they've done here. Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 4, Death Stranding, and with the iPad Mini 7 and Resident Evil 7 here, I was actually able to max this out. So we're at high settings, and I've got the resolution as high as it can go right here. But we're at 2560 by 1688. One thing I've disabled here is motion blur because I'm not a huge fan of it. Now, unfortunately, with Resident Evil 7, it'll only run at 30 FPS. That's the only option we have, but it does look really good. I was blown away when Resident Evil Village launched on iOS, and at the time, they didn't even mention they were going to be bringing Resident Evil 7, 2, and 4 over. And of course, we've basically got the same specs as the iPhone 15 Pro Max. A lot of people did complain about their phone overheating while playing a game like this, and I mean, I could definitely see that happening. But with the iPad Mini 7, we do have a bigger cooling area. So, the whole back of the unit is aluminum. And I played through this for about 45 minutes. I didn't notice it really dropping down, but again, I don't have any frame counter on screen or anything like that. I could have added something like Pref Dog from my PC, but I just kind of wanted to get this out of the way because gaming on this has been a real treat. Here's Genshin Impact, highest settings, 60 FPS, and with the iOS version, we can use a controller natively. We don't need any third-party applications or anything like that. The developers really do optimize this game much better for iOS than Android, and I really think it comes down to in-app purchases. I think they're probably making more money over here on iOS with in-app purchases. I personally never bought anything in the game itself, but playing this at the highest settings, 60 FPS, on this 8.3-inch display, looks awesome. Another one I like playing on these iPads is Warframe, and this isn't a cut down version. I mean, this is a PC port over to iOS, and this is one that we can change the frame rate on, so I'm going to go up to 60, and we're going to go to high settings. I want to show you what we've got here. I think this A17 Pro Apple chip can handle it, and I will have dynamic resolution turned off. So we've got full res out of this display here, and it is actually really smooth. So this has been really fun to play on iOS. When the M4 iPad Pro launched, I did a bunch of testing with this game. Obviously, that chip's going to outpace this A17 Pro, but this chip definitely isn't a slouch. I've been able to run everything that I've thrown at it maxed out at 60 FPS. And another thing I wanted to test here was some emulation. Now for this chip, you want to go down to the lower end stuff with RetroArch. You're not going to have an issue. N64, you want to do some SNES. Right now, from the iOS store, without side loading, we cannot get GameCube, but PSP is here, so I'm going to be using PPSSPP. 8x resolution, and just to show you that we are upscaled that high, which is definitely overkill for the resolution of this display. Go into the settings here, you can see we are at 8x. So 4K, and I mean, it's just really not going to live up to 4K with the display, but I wanted to show you that this chip will handle PSP emulation at 8x resolution. Even the harder to emulate games like God of War, Chains of Olympus, and even Ghost of Sparta. And if you really wanted to get down to it and sideload, let's say Dolphin for iOS, GameCube, and Wii emulation, this chip's got more than enough power to emulate those games. So overall, I do think that this is a nice upgrade for the iPad mini line. It would have been really nice if they added a 120Hz display here instead of keeping that 60Hz, but I mean, this is what we have right now. And if you're looking for a new iPad mini with a more powerful CPU and more RAM, then this thing will definitely have you covered. And when it comes to this form factor in a tablet, yeah, I do say at an 8-inch tablet, this is the best tablet on the market that you can get right now in this form factor. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. Really appreciate you watching. If there's anything else you want to see running on the new iPad mini 7, just let me know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning a little more, maybe picking one up, I'll leave some links down below. But like always, thanks for watching.